It is Tuesday, December 13th, and the Give and Go show is back in your life. As always, my name is Griffin Queen, and I am joined by Matt Ferentinos. Matt Modi is not going to be with us this week. He had like a family vacation or like obligations outside of this podcast. Not really sure what he's got going on, but it probably doesn't matter that much. Granted, I'm saying that after not being here last week and Ferentinos and Modi carrying the pod without me. So, Ferentinos, appreciate you doing so. Modi, if you end up watching this episode, appreciate you doing so. At this point, all of us have missed at least one episode, so we're doing okay.
I feel like the glue guy in back-to-back episodes, but I also did miss an episode.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah,
two, I think. I think I missed two, actually.
maybe two, but regardless, yeah. I mean, obviously, we try and do this weekly. The NBA being an everyday kind of league and a 365 day of the year league, we're going to miss some episodes. We're going to have weeks where we don't release episodes. Sometimes there's going to be really just not that much to talk about, whether it's because there's just been uneventful games or, you go to the All-Star break and you have that kind of weird period after the All-Star break where things slow down a little bit.
Yeah, man, I went from like Ben Simmons will never score more than 10 points a game to like it was like 2 weeks since we did an episode and he had his like little stretch where he played well. The Nets and Pelicans have actually had little stretches where they played well recently.
Yeah, before we get into that real quick, just a little housekeeping. If you are watching us on YouTube right now, make sure you click the like button. Make sure you comment below just to let us know you're watching. If you've got anything you want us to talk about in a future episode, if there's anything that you disagree with us on a previous take or anything that we say on this pod that you disagree with or agree with, feel free to comment
below. Tell you
below.
Why you're wrong.
Yeah, we will tell you why you're wrong, or we will try and re-examine ourselves and, have a conversation with God. Just kidding.
I'm more of a double down guy.
Double down. You're gonna double down.
We're more of a double down podcast.
Yeah. I mean, we're a group of guys that will absolutely not go to therapy. So I think we're all kind of double down guys. But if you got anything you want to comment below. We always love seeing comments. They make us feel like people are, enjoying the pod. And if you have not done so already, make sure you click that subscribe button so you're in the know whenever we drop a new episode. Beyond that, really good reason to click the subscribe button. I also drop sports betting tips on this channel every so often, usually a few times a week. So if you are in a state that allows sports betting, I'm not encouraging you to sports bet, but if you already do sports bet and you want some NBA tips on some good bets, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'll be posting some here going forward.
And you're shockingly successul.
Yeah, I do okay. I do okay. Yeah, I wish that I was in a state that allowed it. I'm in California. They don't allow it. But
also, South Carolina does not allow it. Well, we don't allow such immoral things like sports gambling.
Yeah. South Carolina, no gambling, no gay people.
We're the very moral state.
Yeah. I assume they still have segregation. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in South Carolina.
I'm in a city, all right? I'm in a city,
Yeah. I'm just messing with you. Obviously, both of us DC born and bred. So
oh yeah. Maryland, one of a progressive state that actually just legalized sports gambling.
Yes. On the end of our governor's term when he's been saying he's going to do it for a few years. A lot of people were tweeting at him a lot. But he got there. He did it.
Well, I'm sure Elon got rid of those tweets.
Sure. Back to the previous point, we were talking about a little bit the Nets and the Pelicans. I think they're both 9-1 in their past 10.
Yeah,
Pelicans are 9-1. Nets are 8-2.
8-2.
And to the point that you were talking about before we jumped over into the housekeeping, you had said that you didn't think Ben Simmons was going to score over 10 points a game. I remember that episode, and I remember us talking about how the Lakers were the worst team in the league. We were talking about how the Wizards were on a hot streak. Yeah. The Sixers couldn't figure it out. Basically, not that the Lakers are not still, technically a bad team. They've, to an extent, figured it out. They had a little bit of
Anthony Davis has figured it out. He's looked really well, which is encouraging. So I didn't know if he'd ever get back to, that level AD, and he can do it.
Let's give him his flowers a little bit. Russell Westbrook largely has figured out how to make the bench roll work. I saw somebody on the NBA subreddit yesterday post a comparison of his numbers this year versus last year. And essentially across the board, his numbers are down. And the first comment was, yes, but he's playing 8 minutes a game less than he was playing last year.
Yeah. His numbers should be down. That much more down when considering the minutes too.
It's down 1.5 points per game, a couple rebounds, maybe 1 assist. It's actually per 36 significantly better than it was last year, as is his efficiency, as is his turnover rate. Like, he's not an all-star right now. I'm not going to pretend. And people were talking about him for 6th man of the year or something like that. Let's spend another 30 games before we have that conversation.
Yeah.
Where
Let's
the
see where they
Lakers
are in the
go.
standings.
Yeah, let's see if the Lakers can go at least above 500 by the All-Star break. Then we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I think he deserves a little bit of credit, just like Melo got when he changed his role a few years ago, for starting to adapt to decreased athleticism and no longer being the guy.
And like he can still provide elite athleticism just for not as many minutes. And his play style does clash with LeBron's as much as it, it could like imagine both those players in their primes. You think that it would work no matter what, but they both don't drive to the hoop as much. They're both not the same players as they used to be. And it just makes sense to stagger their minutes and really get maximum output from both of those players. But, there's still a few games back from my Utah Jazz who aren't really, top seed anymore, but they got a little work to do. They're still above 500.
Well, the Jazz and the Pacers are actually two that I was thinking about before we jumped on this, where
that Pacers game last night, by the way, oh my God, Halliburton had like 1 point. It was awful.
And I saw a lot of people saying this is your all-star point guard. And it's like, dude, Embiid had a 0-point game. Like,
yeah, it just happens.
It happens. It does. Is it great?
Like, no. I think Miami basically focused completely on Halliburton and shutting him down. And it was like 84-82, right?
And he's a young guard in a system with a pretty diverse cast of players that have changed over the past few years. Like, he's going to have duds. It's going to happen. But to my point about Utah and Indiana, they're both 3-7 in their last 10. They've fallen back to earth a lot. I think Utah's 1 game above 500. The Pacers are at 500. These were teams that, and the Spurs, the Thunder, the Wizards, they had these good starts, and it feels like every single year these teams have really good starts. Not specifically these teams, but 5 or 6 teams in the league where we convince ourselves that they're genuine contenders.
And the Wolves are 13-14 as much as they just did. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they just gave up the entire farm for Rudy Gobert. And I was like, 50-win team because Rudy Gobert doesn't win under 50 games.
Yeah.
And they're a 500 team. So do we need to give these teams more time to really kind of figure out where they are? Yes. Are we a third of the way through the season? Also, yes. Like, a lot of time has passed. The Jazz are not a contender. They have a lot of good individual pieces. And if I were them, I would absolutely try and build around Lauri Markkanen. But if I'm them, I'm also telling Lauri, hey, next year is probably not it either, because we're going to move some of these guys. We're going to get some picks back. We're going to get some young players back, because a lot of your running mates are like late 20s, early 30s. They're not going to be on this team that much longer. We can get better value for them. Let's get rid of Conley. Let's get rid of
if you might end up in DC,
Jordan Clarkson.
Can't you see that being like a Wizards move to give up
absolutely
like a pick or for
well that's the
player.
The Wizards should be doing the same thing that I'm recommending the Jazz do, but they're going to do the inverse. They're going to trade for a 6th man candidate who's got pretty good shooting splits, and they're going to give them a young player and a pick in return. And why? It used to be to make the 8 seed, right? Now all you have to do is make the 10 seed. You got to get
play-in. Get in the play-in.
You're going to do that to make a play-in seed?
You're going to sell out for that play-in game.
That's absurd. Like, we talk about this in the group chat. We talk about this on Twitter. We talk about this with all of our friends in real life. Wizards Twitter talks about this. NBA Twitter talks about this.
Yeah.
How is everyone else so aware that the Wizards shouldn't do this, except for the Wizards?
Clearly, like we said, it's management. I saw a comment that made me laugh was the Wizards ownership is trying to keep Dan Snyder in power to take the spotlight off of him still, because it's that bad. And just even going to kind of the DC atmosphere for basketball, though, that video that I shared about people walking on the court, like I definitely remember being shocked at how close I can get. Like, I remember Donovan Mitchell like running by me, getting a ball like on the sideline. I was like, whoa, we're like this close. We can be this close. Like, that's a thing. And yeah, like a very on-brand thing for the Wizards is before halftime to make sure you get the beer and you're in line first. You only watch that. It's the Nets Wizards. Like, KD and Kyrie are playing basketball, and
Kristaps Porzingis plays for the team. Like, he's a legitimate star. Like
Yeah.
people globally know. Now he's not that he's like a massive star or anything, but people know who
But
he
he's
is.
great. Yeah,
He
he's
was
a
like
big
a really
name.
like he was famous in New York. He was famous in Dallas. He's famous in Washington. He's a 7'3" center that can shoot threes and can put the ball on the floor. And it DC, like somebody mentioned in the Reddit thread about it, they were like, Wizards games aren't about going to see a basketball game. Real fans sit in the 400s. Wizard games are a social event. And I was like, that's not true, because if they were a social event, they would sell out. They would have
Yeah.
famous people at games. They would have politicians at games. They would have business owners at games.
You
They
never
can't
see
sell
that
out
before
their
the
floor
game, them
seats.
like doing the floor seats. Yeah, like just
They
like
can't
seeing
sell
who's
out
in the
their
game. Like,
200
yeah.
section. They can't sell out their 300 section. Yeah, maybe the real fans are in the 400 section, but that's because the real fans have realized that it's not worth their money to get better tickets. You go to get drunk with your friends. You don't go to watch a good basketball product, which is crushing. Like it sucks. DC is.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how many fucking basketball players the DMV builds, and you can't get any of those guys to play for the Wizards
To want to come back and play. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, Kevin Durant has the Maryland tattoo on his back.
Kevin Durant's got a Nationals tattoo. The
Like
Nationals didn't exist until he was like 16. Like, what are we talking about here? Where like no one in this area, like Beasley grew up in this area. He doesn't want to play for the Wizards. Oladipo grew up in this area. He doesn't want to play for the Wizards. Like, there's a lot of really talented guys that grew up in the DMV that would rather retire or go to Europe than play for the Wizards.
Maryland Pride. I think we have the most gold medal Olympians for the U.S. in Maryland, state of Maryland.
Wow, is that because Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky won?
I mean, that's part of it, but I think wrestling too.
We do have some wrestlers.
Rules and Kyle
Snyder.
What's his name? Snyder, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think just overall, Maryland, they just produce winners.
It is funny that we've got multiple like gold medalists and just generally like Olympian wrestlers, because nobody would ever think of Maryland when thinking like you're thinking Midwest, you're thinking some parts of the South.
Or just athletes in general. I'm thinking like Florida and Southern California. Just hot places.
I mean, places where you can do something year round, like particularly, baseball, basketball, football.
Or Texas.
If you can train year round, then you're good. Maryland does not crack the top of that list. And we're not a big state by any means. So good for us. Good for us being from Maryland. Too bad we are not among those athletes who went to the Olympics or joined the NBA. But we can talk about
like
those
to talk.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Quick question for you. Do you
Sure.
think Dame is the second best 3-point shooter in the league behind Steph Curry right now?
I saw a stat that he and Steph are the two players, like they're the entire list of players that have like over 11 games or something.
3 games, yeah.
Yeah. Do I think he's the second best behind Steph? I think if the game is on the line and you are asking me to give the ball to somebody and Steph Curry is disqualified, Dame is probably who I'm giving it to. Does that necessarily make him the second best 3-point shooter? No, there's other guys, at least on a catch and shoot basis, who are probably better shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Their percentages are higher. Let me say that. Their percentages are higher. They're more reliable.
But when Dame's on, it's crazy.
It's a battle for the universe. You're in some Space Jam shit, and you need to make a shot to save the world. Yeah, Dame is right there with Steph Curry. And it's, for both of them, it's not just 3-pointers. Like, I'd ask them to make any kind of shot except for a dunk. And, you think you can count on them to probably make it.
Speaking of any kind of shots, Kevin Durant technically shoots the most inefficient shot at the highest rate possible. Like, he's shooting.
That's been the case for a long time, I think.
It has been, but it's just nuts when you compare it to like he's shooting better than Zion has in this past month, and like he's shooting. He takes more elbow jumpers
than I feel like anybody that's come around in the past decade, because they've just taken that out of their games.
It's just and he's so good at it. Like, and maybe that's also just partly his athleticism is not getting to the rim as much. He actually does like drive and make like a lot of plays that I'm like, ooh, like, because he just like lands a certain way, and with injuries I never want to see him like push himself or land awkwardly, but like he can just do that little pump fake, hesitation, get right to his spot, and then like in the Wizards game that and one, he just lets the dude run behind him. He's like a free shot, and it's just automatic and butter, like from that range, like 15 foot. I feel like Luca kind of dominates in that area with like floaters and stuff too.
Sure.
And
Chris
then he
Paul
works
used
like,
to
yeah.
before his knees really started to go.
And then you
Chris
work in
Paul
like
had an
alley
incredible
oops with
mid-range
guys
game.
too, like pick and rolls like around that
Yeah.
area.
There's some guys that and that's kind of, we've talked about it on this pod. We've talked about it a little bit, that Houston Rockets team that completely took twos out of their game
Yeah,
because it's a
just
quote
layups
unquote
and
inefficient shot.
3-pointers.
And I mean, you've got a shooter as talented as James Harden, plus a lot of the guys that were on his supporting cast, like Eric Gordon, who absolutely can make floaters, 12 to 16 feet, who
Oh yeah.
absolutely can take elbow jumpers, who absolutely have fadeaways inside of 24 feet where it still makes sense for them to get somebody on their hip and shoot a jumper and get fouled. Like they still would have gone to the line the way the Rockets wanted to go to the line. And they just completely took it out of their game because they were such a math-based team,
I
and
feel like
it made such a bad product for them because it won regular season games, but then everyone, like, you had 7 games to clue in on them in the playoffs. Of course they were going to eventually regress.
And I'd like to see more players do that. I mean, like the best players do, like, I mean, Tatum can just get to the rim now. So
Sure.
like, he just gets to the rim when he does it. But like
To
Jaylen Brown will shoot some mid-range jumpers and he'll get hot and do that.
to the same kind of question as your Steph Dame question, Jason Tatum or Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have one player today who, I'm not going to say one game, I'm going to say a finals series. You pick one of those players and you get them for the rest of this year, and you get you're going to the finals. That you're let's say you're going to play the Suns, the Warriors, whoever the fuck you want to play, right? Which of those 2 guys in the East are you picking?
Giannis.
You're taking Giannis still?
I mean, he already got a ring.
I am too. Yeah. I want to be clear. I am too.
And like, I mean, the Celtics, you see how good they are. Like, Giannis didn't have Middleton, and like Holiday is also good, but I don't think Holiday is as talented as like Jason or Jaylen Brown right now. And
Holiday's a streaky scorer, but he is the best guard defender I think we've seen. In
Luca even said it. He said
years.
that his toughest defensive matchup is Drew Holiday.
Yeah. He's John Stockton with less steals.
But Giannis also, like, just kind of, if he could use any help, it would be from a shooter. And in the finals, he's getting, like, if he's playing and he's aggressive, easy 35, 15, and like 8 maybe, like, because he just generates so much offense by getting rebounds, like getting second chance points. And he's a proven winner, and if anything, just continues to get better. So that's why, like, I think previous Giannis still isn't the best Giannis. I still think the best Giannis is a few years out, which I
agree.
Insane.
I mean, Giannis is what, 27, 28. I think we'll probably see a little bit more growth for the next couple of years. Eventually we're going to hit a point where he does start to slow down a little bit. But you look at, and I'm not saying that he's LeBron where he's going to have the longevity of LeBron, but LeBron, by the time he was even just 18, much less, 22, 23, when he was going to the finals for the first time, had far more wear and tear on his legs than Giannis does at that point. And then Giannis at this point, like LeBron at this point, 27, that was around the time that he went to the Heat. He was on his 2nd or 3rd finals run. He'd been deep in the playoffs for like 5 or 6 years. He had been on a Team USA. He'd been on the world team. He had played AAU ball and high school ball. He got drafted at 18. Like, if Giannis puts
meaningful
the work,
minutes of wear and tear,
like, and he was a starter from day one, whereas Giannis had to kind of work his way into that position and has played multiple positions at this point. I think Giannis still has some growth to do. I obviously still think Jason Tatum still has some growth to do. I think he's kind of proved that this year that, last year we were saying you're an MVP consideration. This year, there's a very strong argument that right now he is the MVP. And there's still a lot of growth to do. He's 24 years old, something like that.
I wish Moda was here because I would think of him as like a comparison to like a Jalen Hurts, or like literally.
Sure.
The Celtics are like still far, and I think what's their win total? Like, they have 21 wins.
They're 21-7, I think.
Pelicans with 18, actually the Bucks with 19, but like they're still right now far and away, I think, the best team in the NBA.
Worth noting, both the Celtics both the Celtics and the Bucks have missed some vital pieces to the team. You know,
Yeah.
right now the Celtics are
Marcus
missing Al
Smart's been hurt
Horford.
for a while.
Smart's been hurt. Robert Williams III has been hurt, and then
Yeah.
Middleton was hurt for a long time on the Bucks. You know, these are the two in, you know, I know you guys talked about it last week about how you think it's a 2-team race in the East. And I will counter that a little bit. But those teams have been hurt and they're still far and away better than almost everybody else. The only other team that I say in the East, and you may have mentioned this, is the Cavs. It's the Cavs.
Yeah.
Because the Cavs have a superstar scorer. They have an incredible distributor at point guard.
God,
they have
so and I love the Nets pieces. Jared Allen, Karis LeVert.
They've got so much length at almost every position. I mean,
Kevin Love as a veteran presence is really good. We talked about someone adapting to their minutes. Like he gives you like 20 minutes of great basketball every night.
If Kevin Love is your 8 or 9 man, and it's a Kevin Love who has very much accepted kind of like the stretch 4 or 5 role, who can also, I mean, we always underrate what kind of passer Kevin Love is. Kevin Love can do a little bit of, you know, general work out of the post and in the half court. Kevin Love is the exact fucking kind of role player you want if you're going on a titles run. The unfortunate reality of those Cavs teams is that they needed him to be their 3rd best scorer. And the NBA transitioned. Yeah, the NBA transitioned in the direction where Kevin Love probably shouldn't be your 3rd best scorer.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Mobley, who I'd probably cut you off as someone that you were going to mention too, is a great piece on that team. And Darius Garland, like they just have so many players and are so deep and are still young and figuring it out. Like I could see the Cavs and Celtics. I mean, I could see this being like a 3-headed team, barring any crazy changes to their lineups, because they're just young teams that played together for a few years and are really just getting better. Sixers have their issues. Like every other team in the East has their issues. The Nets are maybe peaking and starting to look like a team like we're going to see closer to what their ceiling could be.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I would include the Nets in that discussion about potentially like a 4-headed monster
if they're smart about who they keep. I think
if they're smart about who they keep and if they get a defensive minded center.
Yeah.
I think they're still missing.
Who would would you give up a Joe Harris for a defensive center? Do you think that that'd be enough?
Absolutely.
I think
you probably also have to give up a pick or one of the young guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth it to the Nets to give up like a Cam Thomas because he's really valuable for them off the bench.
I'd rather give up Thomas than Sumner. I think Sumner is great.
Maybe. It's a question of, you know, obviously the Nets are on a win now path, right? You know, Kevin Durant is 34. Kyrie Irving is 31. You have to
maximize their play right now.
Yeah, and these are guys that have had injuries. These are guys who are gonna start to regress if they haven't already. You've got a window, and if that means selling the farm a little bit, like the Lakers did, like the Timberwolves have tried to,
the Nets already did, kind of
like the Nets already did. I mean, they've shown that they're not afraid to make that decision.
Yeah, and I mean it's nice because they actually have like, I think the guys that they've signed and played, like Seth Curry has his problems, but when he's on, he wins games for us on regular season nights. TJ Warren, I think, has played like 4 games now since I've seen, and he's been a really valuable piece. Like he's a good starter when they need him to start and they're resting players. Or like I just noticed, like as a bench team, like I'm confident when he gets the ball that he can score. And all you really need on your bench unit is, I think, for the Nets to kind of stop the bleeding and to be able to, when a team goes on a 6-8 point run, just get a guy that can settle down and get a bucket. And I think TJ Warren fills that role. Royce O'Neal has played really well.
TJ Warren, to the point earlier about guys that were hurt. We didn't say TJ Warren for 2 years.
Yeah.
And the Nets finally got him back. And, you know, he's not going to be bubble TJ Warren because no one on earth could ever be bubble TJ Warren. But yeah,
we got to get him locked in a gym.
It's pieces that you're missing. And I know, you know, you want to talk about like a Seth Curry. They talk about Seth Curry the same way they talk about, you know, like a Kyle Korver or a JJ Redick or Duncan Robinson or whatever, where it's like
the jump shot.
Just the jump shot. If the 3 isn't falling, they don't have value. And there's a lot of defensive issues where you've got to hide them. And yeah, of course that's the case. But Seth Curry can distribute the ball a little bit. Seth Curry has active hands on defense. If Seth Curry is hitting his 3-pointers at a 40% or above rate, he does have value. So you can't just be like, okay, this guy can't play in the playoffs because they're going to attack him every time out. It's like, yeah, they might attack him every time out. You have to use your other personnel to hide him as much as you can and hope that his jumper is wet.
And he plays a good
it worked
2-man
up
game
and
with Ben
down for JJ
Simmons.
Redick. It worked up and down for Kyle Korver. It was working for a little bit for the Heat with Duncan Robinson and before his regression. But I mean, that Heat team that went to the finals, I guess 3 years ago now, was able to do so off of the back of guys like Duncan Robinson being able to spread the floor for the rest of them and make everybody else's job easier. So yeah, you did have to hide him.
Great.
You had to hide him in the playoffs, but also like other teams had to specifically counteract him.
So what do you think about the Pelicans? Like, do you think they could keep it up? I didn't even realize they were the 1 seed until now. Like,
they're on a streak. They're at 9-1.
On a tear. Damn.
And they've had injuries during that tear, and they've missed players for certain games.
Because Brandon Ingram's been out for a while, right?
Yep. Like, and I think
and Zion's been carrying him, and he's been looking good. I know that was one of your like kind of predictions, was that he would come in and kill it, but he's averaged like 29 a game, I think.
I've never seen a player that plays the way he does inside that also has the kind of touch he has inside.
Yeah.
I can't. It's like
he's like finesse for such a big man.
Yeah, and obviously he's not crazy tall, but it's like Shaq with like the finger roll of like a Steph Curry or something like that. Like his ability to finish with weird angles, how gentle his touch is, his ability to finish through contact and get fouled.
He's like a guard but plays center. Like,
yeah, and they're not giving him the number of calls they should. They're treating him like he's LeBron, where they're not. And I know everyone likes to pretend like LeBron flops all the time. It would be a very positive thing for Zion's career if he learned how to flop a little bit, because he's not getting the calls that he should be getting.
He should go to the Joel Embiid school of flopping.
Yeah, I wish Modai was on this episode so I could talk about what a foul merchant Joel Embiid is. I heard you guys talking shit about me on the last episode.
Draws more fouls than Shaq did in his prime Shaq hack-a-Shaq year.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah,
it's like people talk about like, I mean, there's a lot of Sixers hate going on right now, but just how unwatchable the Sixers games are, because like Harden just.
Does Modai watch them? Like, does he like, honestly, does he watch a full Sixers game and watch Harden and Embiid hit the ground? Obviously Harden injured right now.
So bad.
Does he watch them hit the ground 30 times a game and say, you know what, this is fun basketball?
I could excuse like some of Harden's bullshit before when he would get assists or at least drive to the rim, because he used to drive to the rim and get to the rim all the time. And so it's like, okay, yes, he foul baits sometimes and some jump shots, but like legitimately he does make plays where he drives to the rim. That doesn't even happen anymore. Like I feel like he takes 2 steps and just tries to get a call.
His hamstring is an issue. It's always gonna be an issue going forward. He doesn't have
from now on. It's just I've seen Sixers fans talk about him the way Nets fans were kind of talking about Ben Simmons as first. And I think it's funny that I think Harden's just getting worse and Simmons is only going to get better.
Sure. Can we? I feel like we got to save this for when Modai's on the pod, because he and I have argued about this back and forth in text messages. We've argued about it on Twitter. I think we've probably argued about it on this show. But just to give you a little bit of a preview of it, can we fucking stop with the Joel Embiid falls the way he does because it's what doctors recommend? Like,
that's bullshit.
Joel Embiid is not the first 300-pound player in the NBA, and I have never seen a man that large hit the ground as often as he does. And also,
I feel like it'd be bad for him to constantly hit the ground.
Like the man has a million contusions and like things that he needs rest days for, and lower body sprains, and
I mean, he's a giant human being. I think that is some of it is legitimate. Yeah,
sure. But how much of that is because he is throwing himself at the ground every single game?
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, yeah, he might, let's say, he might be avoiding heel injuries. He might be avoiding ankle injuries. He might be avoiding knee injuries.
So much. That's what I don't think.
But you are 300 pounds and you are hitting the ground, and physics does not agree with you doing that as often as you do.
The only believable take that I remember hearing is like how Steph Curry would kind of fall backwards on threes. Like to avoid,
and Steph has the same motion falling backwards every time, where he literally lets his legs out and he absorbs contact on his thighs and
because he had a noticeable like ankle. That's why he signed the deal, and that's why they were able to get KD and blah,
he
blah,
also
blah,
wears those ankle braces that are apparently like ridiculously hard to move around in, but Steph has learned how to move around in them. Somebody was talking about them in a thread on the NBA or on the Lakers subreddit recently because of LeBron's recent ankle injuries. And they were saying why doesn't LeBron consider using these? Obviously, it's worked for Steph. And there was a player who had multiple knee and ankle injuries who used the same product that Steph used for a number of years. And he was like, LeBron James's style absolutely would not work with those because they fuck up your ability to drive so much. They weigh a ton. They're super they basically like limit your lateral movement a ton. Steph Curry's ability to use them is because he doesn't play the way they do. And also it's taken him the better part of his career to adjust to using them. LeBron's pushing 40. He's not going to adjust to something like that at this point in his career.
Yeah, I feel like it would just make his movements more robotic. Like, I feel like
which they're already progressively
Steph moves
becoming.
off ball and can kind of run like in that way. And like, he's not the person that needs to. I feel like just him constantly like learning throughout his career how to save his ankles versus someone like LeBron who makes his bread and butter on driving to the hoop and finishing in the lane. Like that's
and
not
going
what Steph
through
does.
people rather than around them.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it would be cool if he could try it. It may end up causing more issues for him. Like, is it worth it at that point?
Because one fix the one problem could just create issues for other things.
Yeah.
But I think Embiid is just falling to get fouls.
I mean, and look, I'm sure part of it is because it's in his head that I don't want to be injured. And I get that. Like, I understand spending the beginning of your career. Obviously, I haven't been through that, but like, I understand why a player who spent the beginning of his career when he was a lottery pick, like a top pick, missing multiple years when he was supposed to bring this team to the promised land, who is now going to overcorrect in the opposite direction. But we as fans should not justify that. Like, this is not entertainment, and we're watching a spectator sport. So if the only thing that matters is winning, then we probably need to change a lot of rules around when it relates to the sport of basketball. But a lot of the rules are based around what is interesting to watch, and this shit is not interesting to watch.
No. And those games are so painful. I think they've done a good job at addressing certain rule changes and emphasis on certain things.
Yeah.
Like they took away the take foul.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like Hacka Simmons, but it's bullshit.
And
I hate that so much, where it's a shot in possession, which I think is great because it should discourage players from doing that. Not really a take foul thing, but Zion got that pretty sweet fast.
I was gonna make the same comment as you. And I think
and the Suns were bitches the next game.
They were, and the Suns have done it before, and I find that so frustrating that the Suns
literally did it the next game after trying to fight the Pelicans were doing it. Like
the Suns
and Chris
always
Paul tried to get a bullshit runner that led to Zion doing that because he just wanted to get points at the end of the game. Like, oh my God, the Suns are so hateable right now.
The literal Jordan logo, the Jumpman logo, is based on Jordan doing that in a game. So, again, this is a spectator sport. This is for entertainment. If you don't want people to do shit like that at the end of games, stop them. Have a close game because they're not going to do shit like that if the game's close. They're going to have things like where they're going to try and advance the ball up slowly. And they're going to make good shots. They're not going to do fucking 360 dunks unless you give them an open lane.
Oh, that looks so good. That was.
My God, he's incredible.
People who follow Zion for years, like he would do that shit on YouTube in high school all the time, and just to watch him do it in a pro game, it's like unreal.
I absolutely said when he was in high school, I was like, I guarantee he's not going to be able to do this in the NBA, and I was wrong. Yeah, because he was doing it. It wasn't that he was just doing it in high school. It's that he was doing it against, no offense to you, kids that were like smaller than you, who like very clearly had not hit puberty yet.
It's legit though. Like, imagine going to algebra, failing a test, and having to like guard LeBron. But like, we saw that with Zion, and it was bad. Yeah.
And at one point in time, you saw that with LeBron too. Like, I can't imagine what it's like for players. Like, obviously, you hear stories about people playing against like future D1 players or future NBA players. But what's it like to be a high schooler and play against LeBron James when he's already on the cover of Sports Illustrated? Or you play against John Wall when he's already got the coolest hoop mixtape of all time.
Just like, thank God they already have the poster and I'm not going to be on it.
Yeah, my gosh.
I mean, I think, but the thing with Zion, it's like every league that he's played in, he still looks like a bigger, faster than every other player on the court. And I think maybe not so much bigger than NBA players now, but to where you're talking about his finesse in the paint, like he plays the big man role so well.
He's a shooting guard.
he's thicker, but
Yeah,
just
but
the way
his
that he can
height is
still,
his height is shooting guard height.
which makes it so like he has to be so creative to get those
Yeah.
points, and he clears the space using his body, and it really is just like so much fun to watch. And I feel like
Zion has
he's
an
like a bully. He
inch.
wears people down too.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I feel like that plays an effect, especially in playoff basketball when you see teams break down. A jump shooting team like the Nets aren't going to be as good in physical games where they're worn down on defense.
Yeah.
That's literally the 27 missed 3-point game against the Rockets because they were trying so hard to chase down the Warriors to stop them from hitting all their threes that they were just so gassed and couldn't hit one on the other end.
Which also comes down to a coaching problem when it's you got to call timeouts, you got to get these guys,
yeah.
you got to run set plays. I know some teams hate running set plays because whether it's back in the day they're running the triangle or a modified version of the triangle or the free flowing stuff that the Warriors do or stuff that the Cavs tried with LeBron being a focal point and everything coming out from him. Like you have to run set plays to get guys open and get easy buckets to stop the bleeding. Even if they're on an 11-0 run, you call a timeout, you come out of it and you get a 2-pointer and then they hit another shot. At least for those 2 points, you stop the bleeding and you got your role players back in it.
Yeah. And I feel like it's good to see teams specifically like, if you have a like Joe Harris or just one of the role players on like a Simons on the Blazers when Dame is back and dominating the ball, like someone that you want to get going and to hit their shots because they're going to have opportunities for them. They're role players. And like, that's the point. Like KD is obviously getting 50% of the work. Like Luka is obviously getting so much usage, but
right.
As good as Luka is, you would still want to get roll or set plays in motion so that all he has to do is inbound a pass. He doesn't have to take the dribbles, drive, just create and use that much energy just to get an open shot. Man, this eggnog is making it so I can't talk.
Yeah, it'll have that effect on you. Yeah, I mean, to use the example of the Blazers, obviously you want Dame taking more shots than a lot of guys, and then beyond that, you want Simon's taking more shots than a lot of guys. But if you're not including Nurkic in the shooting, or if you're not including anybody else on the team, Josh Hart is on the team, I believe, right? If you're not giving Josh Hart shots, Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart.
He was also on the Pelicans too.
Yeah, and on my Lakers, a guy that I wish they had kept.
Would have been
if you're not getting, when he's healthy, even though Gary Payton is not the greatest shooter or anything like that, or Justice Winslow, not a very good scorer, like you have to get these guys involved in the offense, or else when shit freezes up like that, and you just keep turning to Dame, or you keep turning to James Harden, or you keep turning to LeBron James, like you're going to lose games because as good as they are in ISO situations, you can't do that for more than 40% of the possessions.
Because then at the end,
we've seen that you can't do it.
And teams will just shamelessly double team those superstar players.
Why wouldn't
that's the nice thing about, looking at the Celtics and the Cavs and the Bucks, like the Grizzlies and the Nuggets, everything runs through Jokic, but like those teams, and a lot of the Kings this year, you're seeing it like when you could spread the ball around and there are so many different threats on that offense and they play knowing that they have that many different threats. It's so much different than everything just coming from one guy.
The Kings, a really great example of a lot of people really, really underrating Sabonis because he was not the greatest defender and he's got kind of T-Rex arms, but they put him next to Fox, a pretty good distributor, but not like one of the best in the game. And they put a guy like Sabonis who can distribute from basically anywhere on the floor. And now you have these two focal points of the offense where basically they're hitting guys all over the court. And if those guys can't finish, they can finish because they're both talented scorers in their own right. That's the way to build a team. Like I know some of these teams, a Luka, a LeBron, in the past, sometimes a KD, hopefully, as a Celtics hater, the way they go with Tatum, they want to do this thing where it's heliocentric around one guy. And those teams don't win titles. Like even the year that the Cavs won with LeBron doing that, he had Kyrie and Kevin Love next to him, and he had really good role players.
The role players on that team, I was gonna say, and
there's a bunch of bucket guys.
You knew LeBron was gonna get his, you knew Kyrie was gonna get his, but who's I can't think of his name. tall 3-point shooter. He was one of the glue guys with like RJ on those
RJ
Cavs
and
teams. He was
God,
the
they're
other
like
guy in
really
the
good
podcast,
friends.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on Road Tripping. I'm gonna blank on his name right now, but we'll think of it.
I'm looking it up.
Road Tripping with Richard Jefferson and
Channing
Frye. Channing Frye. I almost said Channing Tatum. Channing Frye. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I didn't even get. I only did road tripping, and the first thing was, what does road tripping mean in slang? So I
It's a
couldn't even
drug
get
thing,
there
isn't it?
yet.
I'm pretty sure it's a drug thing.
Usually
No,
lengthy
that's
trip taken in a motor vehicle,
okay. All right.
especially
Well, I
for
thought
pleasure.
what am I thinking?
I mean, that's pretty literal.
I'm thinking robo
Rodome.
tripping. I'm thinking of robo tripping, which is when you get high on Robitussin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
what
just
I'm
gotta
thinking
stay
of.
awake.
This podcast has taken a turn. We've lost the script a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he had those guys. He had Shumpert. He had what's his fucking name? Bucket getter, 6-man.
Not Judas Agauskas,
College.
but J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith. Yeah. J.R. Swish. God, I am
no, but like the 2 buckets that J.R. Smith hit to come out of the half when they were up 49-42 in game 7, like
they couldn't hit a shot for like 6 minutes until he hit something.
Because the Warriors, and honestly why the Warriors were so good is like, yes, you had the excellence from Curry, Thompson, and Draymond. The 3 of them were ridiculous. But like Shaun Livingston, I feel like he was one of the best players on that team, because whenever there was like a dagger, whenever you felt like, okay, the Splash Brothers are off the court, this is when we can cut into the lead. Like, no, they had those role players come in, and like, I don't know if I think Andrew Bogut was like traded in order to get Draymond Green on, and that's why they like got rid of him. But I think they had
it was what's his name went out. I'm gonna blank on his name too right now, but
because I know they had like a big man that would play like relief.
He got hurt, and
good.
that's why they brought Draymond in.
Okay, and then ended up.
I'll think of it after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David something. Was it like a lefty shooter?
Not David West. I can't think of it right now. This is gonna kill me. But yes. And I mean, like, look, the extension.
He's Australian. I think he was like
that's
Bogut.
But You're thinking
Australian.
of Bogut. You're thinking of Bogut. Is
Australian. The other guy, British, maybe then.
I don't know. I don't remember, dude. It was so long ago. We're going towards 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
But the extension of playing this style of basketball where you're not a Helios. I mean, like, look at the way that the Pistons are trying to build their team, where you've got Cade Cunningham.
Sucks about Cade.
Sure. And he's injured, and that's going to be bad for his development, but they're probably going to get another pick, and they've already got Jaden Ivey, and they've got Beef Stew, and they've got other guys who can do a lot of different things on the court in conjunction with Cade, and they'll probably trade for other guys that can do those things too. Look at the Rockets with Jalen Green and Sengun and the guys that they're putting around him, where they can do a bunch of stuff. Look at the Spurs, where, you know, right now they're kind of in this weird position, but they're going to pivot into guys where multiple guys can run the show at any given time. Look at the Thunder, where
it's going to be
got multiple guys on the Thunder. All 5 guys on the Thunder potentially are going to be able to handle the ball and distribute and shoot and finish inside.
Presti will go for playmakers. Like when you look at the makeup of that team, Josh Kiddey, SGA, who's playing like insane. I think the only 2 games he hasn't scored 30 in the past 10 were when Desmond Bane was guarding him against the Grizzlies. They were making a big deal about Bane. I think I was listening to the Low Post about how he's done very good on defense and is like really keyed in on just trying to be that lockdown guy on D. And it sucks about like Chet, but like, yeah, the Thunder generally do pick players that are just good playmakers and good playmaking players. And like, yeah, they might have issues like physically, they might not have the build to be a fit in a certain position, but they are all skill players. And honestly, just seeing where the league's going to go, like big men are, I guess, like the typical skill set for big men is going to continue to evolve. And it's going to be like, I mean, 3-point shooters and point guards have to be like Steph Curry range in the future, I think.
Well, that's the thing that they've been talking about now for, 15 years, where we've talked about positionless basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And positionless basketball for this period of time has basically meant, you know, your wings defend everybody, your guards have to shoot and distribute, and your big men have to be able to shoot. And now, there has to be an extension of that where it's not just big men have to shoot, wings have to shoot and play defense, guards have to be able to pass and shoot. It's big men also need to be able to handle the ball, and they need to be able to shoot. You can't have a bunch of DeAndre Aytons, as good as he may be. You need a bunch of Kevin Garnett's. Like, that's going to be the expectation for, and that's why the Cavs are going to be so nasty, because
like
that's
Tim
ideally
Duncan. Yeah.
Ideally, that's what Evan Mobley becomes, is some variation of Kevin Garnett, where he can do everything at a really great rate. And he's got such an incredible motor that even if you have a lockdown defender like a Rudy Gobert, yeah, sure, put Gobert on Mobley. It's going to open up the floor for everybody else, and he's going to be able to find guys. I mean, that's one of the things. Yeah, he couldn't shoot worth a shit, but one of the things that people really underrate about Shaquille O'Neal's game is what a spectacular passer he was, and how talented he was out of the post at passing. If he's not the passer he is, those teams win a lot less than they did.
I feel like people, because you always think of Shaq as being the like 300-pound behemoth for the Lakers, when like most of his highlights were just kind of catching lobs and just backing people down and dunking on them. But the years of development in Orlando before that, like, dude was running the floor.
285-pound Orlando Magic Shaq, who could fucking go coast to coast. Yeah. And either finish through contact or get the ball behind him so somebody else could finish, is the most terrifying player there's ever been.
Like, and it's just funny, like, everyone, I mean, I clown Shaq for his free throws too, but like pregame and stuff, and like seeing Shaq in a gym, like, he doesn't miss. He is amazing and has really good hand-eye coordination. I mean, he just also didn't need to do those things. Like, but like the vision was always there and always a big part of his game. It's just easier for him to take a dunk sometimes too.
Sure. And the thing about Hack-a-Shaq is basically the entire league had to adapt to Hack-a-Shaq. So they were all carrying these like 3 or 4 fucking gigantic men that were not really that good at basketball. If your entire team chemistry is built around, I have to stop this man, and the Lakers or the Magic or the Heat chemistry is built around, we have this guy and now we can fill out every other position, those teams are always going to be at such a massive advantage compared to everybody else. Even if he hits under 50% on his free throws, and if he hits 50%, Hack-a-Shaq is officially a bad strategy.
Yeah.
Like, if he goes 9 for 18, great. You just lost yourself the game because you just gave him a lot of
free points.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things that I want to touch on before we get out of here. We'll wrap this one up pretty soon. The league unveiled the new trophies earlier today.
It's the Michael Jordan MVP award.
Yeah, the Michael Jordan MVP award, and there's some controversy on some of these. So Michael Jordan trophy for the MVP, the Hakeem Olajuwon trophy for Defensive Player of the Year.
I like the rookie.
The Wilt Chamberlain trophy for Rookie of the Year. The
John Havlicek women.
yeah, Jesus Christ. John Havlicek trophy for 6th Man of the Year, and the George Mikan trophy for Most Improved Player.
George Mikan, obviously always good. George Mikan.
Last time Mikan was not good was when he was in like middle school, and then he quite literally was like one of the most unstoppable
dominant players
from college onwards. He was incredible. Yeah. Like, I understand it. I think I was talking about this in one of my group chats. Specifically for Havlicek and for Mikan, and even a little bit for Hakeem. Not only do they kind of exemplify the spirit of the award, but it's also a way to keep these names from being forgotten in like the annals of NBA history, because people don't bring up Hakeem that often, despite the fact that he might arguably be the best defensive player ever, and was the only guy in the 90s to win.
Like, literally a center that has footwork, like all of the moves, the dream shake, just like even Shaq saying that was an influence in his game. Like, there were post moves, and
Shaq said that Hakeem was the only guy that was better than him.
Yeah.
During his career, he was like, I don't want to match up with that guy, because Hakeem fucking, and like they would both get their numbers, kind of like when he'd match up with Robinson on the Spurs, they'd get their numbers, but it's like Hakeem doesn't get the due he deserves because he unfortunately came around at the same time as Michael Jordan.
I mean, I'd rather have, And what's crazy is that, like, still looking back on their careers, that's the thing, is it was still the right pick to take Hakeem. Like, I still don't think you change and take Michael Jordan if you're the Rockets, because
especially the way the league was at that time.
Hakeem
it's a big man's
could win one on his own.
Yeah.
Jordan, yes, like when they came around and he was able to maximize, like everyone knows the Michael Jordan story, but like Akeem Olajuwon, you could get to the championship with him.
That's
just like
when people talk about like what ifs in NBA history, there's just, and it's not really a what if because so many other things would have to change for this to still be the case. But I would love to see Akeem with Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen on a I'm fucking staring at his book right now. Their coach.
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson led team.
Yeah.
He's probably not Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan, part of it was the mystique, and Akeem didn't really have that in the same way. But does he win 4 titles? Does he win 5 titles? Does he win 6 titles? Like, it's an interesting question to me. Obviously, there's never any way to know because what Michael Jordan did was essentially unheard of, to go 6 for 6 in the modern era. But
yeah,
I'd like to have seen Hakeem on like a genuinely good team during his actual prime years, which unfortunately he didn't really get. And then I saw a lot of people saying, why isn't the MVP award named after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? The Social Justice Award is named after Kareem. And which
I think he prefers.
Right. Honestly. That's absolutely maybe he'll come out and say something. But if I'm Kareem, just the way that I've spoken about basketball and the way that I've spoken about things bigger than basketball, I think it's more important to him to be the Social Justice Award. Just my personal take.
So I mean, we haven't talked about this one yet, but the new award that's being introduced, I don't know what criteria.
Oh, the clutch one or whatever it is.
the new clutch player of the year, Jerry West trophy.
Yeah.
I just
which also is very ironic because Jerry West lost a lot of championships games. Yeah.
He was like 1-6, right? Or 1-7 or something.
I think 1-7. I'm pretty sure he's 1-7. Yeah.
Which is hilarious because it's like I was definitely reading on Reddit, and it's like this is gonna make the discourse of NBA talk like just even more obnoxious in years when they're like, really, you think this player is clutch? In 7 years he hasn't even won the Jerry West Clutch Player of the Year award. Like,
what's the criteria? Is it literally going to be game winners?
I don't know if it's game winners or because
why wouldn't like Steph Curry or LeBron James just win that award if it's based on like a statistical model where it's like,
I think if it was like fourth quarter points or something, like you could do that. Sure,
give it to Giannis every year, or give it to Jason Tatum every year, or give it to don't give it to Luka because Luka's team falls apart.
Like Dame though for hitting like the game winner. Like I feel like it would be an award, like especially towards the playoff run, like those teams that are still like fighting for seeding and like those important games, like because no one remembers what happened like in the first week of basketball, like
right.
So it's going to be like what happens leading up to the playoffs, which like it's going to be the most exciting plays then. But yeah, it's still, I'm just curious to see how they award that trophy. And it was like, so what is it, like Robert Ory, I guess, gets them, but like that only happened in the playoffs. Like, are they going to take the playoffs into consideration? If Dame hits a game winner to win the first round of the playoffs and then they get swept the next round, is he the most clutch player of the playoffs? Like,
also, like, let's say, what's his name on the Kings from Maryland? I can't think of anyone's name today. Herter, yeah. Let's say Kevin Herter. I think he's already got 2 buzzer beaters this season. Let's say Kevin Herter finishes the season with 4 buzzer beaters, right? And so he's got 4 buzzer beaters on the season. And then Dame Lillard wins 28 games in the 4th quarter, but he only has like 1 buzzer beater. Are you going to give the clutch player award to Kevin Herter, who is a clutch player, versus Dame Lillard, who might be one of the most clutch players we've ever seen? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I feel like it should be like just centered on the 4th quarter. Cause I mean, like there's a lot of like NFL metrics too when it comes to like game winning drives and things. Like I feel like they have
the NBA has a stat based on clutch time. It might not be their stat, it might be like Basketball References stat or something like that. I think it's like offensive possessions under 2.5 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
And so that's how or maybe under like 4 minutes. And that's how they indicate clutch time. Because there was a lot of years where people were like, why is Kobe Bryant given so many flowers for like his clutch stats when he has less game winners than LeBron James or Michael Jordan or whatever? And it's like, because for 15 of his 20-year career, the dude would take the ball in the 4th quarter, and for the last 6 to 8 minutes, he would do literally everything. And he won a lot of games doing that.
you could still hit a dagger without having it be like a
Right.
buzzer beater, which is
Or
that's
like
the
you hit
thing.
the
It's
go
like,
ahead shot and then you play good defense. Like, do you get negated for that just because?
yeah, like back in the day, if you hit a three to put you up 9 with a minute left, like that was a dagger.
Right.
Like you're
Yeah.
not coming back from that, and you basically won the game. But that's not
Yeah.
going to show up as like a game winner on the stat sheet.
And now if you do that, then somebody runs down the floor, hits another three, and then we play
Yeah.
foul ball for 70
8
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah. We spend the rest of our nights watching guys foul each other
Yeah,
because
I'll
I
be up
guess it's
in
college basketball.
Carl will be up in bed in a sec, just watching the end of the game. How
Yeah.
many minutes you say? 2 minutes. It's been
Yeah.
30
Yeah.
minutes.
I'll see you in the morning. I'm interested to see what they do with it. I think they've already backdated at least one of the awards, the MVP one. They've already said that Jokic's last year award is going to be the first Michael Jordan trophy. So I guess they'll send him a new trophy.
International player. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is cool. And good for him. I don't think he's going to go 3 straight on MVPs. But crazier things have happened, and Jokic absolutely has it in him. So maybe he'll be the back-to-back recipient of the Michael Jordan Award.
He's like a bigger Luka.
Yeah, and they
Still drinks that
complain. They
Coca-Cola.
complain a very similar amount.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, he got a tech for
Yelling at
his teammate.
Yeah, which is fucking absurd. Like ref ball is just as bad as foul ball. I hate that shit. All right, let's get out of here. We'll be back next week. Hopefully Modai will be on the show at that time. If not, we're gonna, like bump him down to like a smaller screen or something. Now that we've each missed an episode. Like I said at the top of the show, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. If you're not following us on Twitter or Instagram, we don't tweet or post pictures and videos as often as we should, but maybe we'll do better if you follow us at
Darth Aid will be the guy commenting a lot. If you want some discourse.
Yeah. I don't remember what our handles are on Twitter or Instagram, but just search for the Give and Go Show. You'll find us. You know how to use the internet. And yeah, that's it. Have a good week. Good talking to you, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Talking to GQ.
Yeah. See you guys next time.
Peace.